So it's such a pleasure to see all of you here. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday afternoon or wherever you are, a Friday. My name is Laura Dalt, and I'm the director of Sten Press. We're an indie publisher in New York City that was founded in 2020. And we specialize in bilingual illustrated poetry and other kinds of short form writing. And we're especially interested in projects that rethink artistic, cultural, political, geographical, and literary borders. And we're so pleased to be a part of Small Fair this year, an online festival that specializes with small indie presses that has been absolutely tremendous. We've heard some amazing talks, and it's a really an annual event, and I highly recommend if you haven't been able to catch any of them, to see if you can catch some more. So we're really thrilled to have Heather Cox. She's an artist who lives and works in New York City. She received her early training in book arts and photography at Mills College. And she went on to study sculpture at the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture and received her MFA from the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And she currently works at the Whitney Museum of American Art. And she's here today to talk about her book that Sten Press published in 2021. And so I think Heather will begin with the presentation of the book itself, and then move to talking about her studio and sort of the process of making the book. And after the book presentation, you're more than welcome to drop some questions into the question box, and then I will go ahead and mediate and ask Heather the questions as you go along. So it's going to be kind of a give and take as we go. Yeah, I think that's it. Heather, warm welcome. It's really fun to see you in your studio with all your stuff behind. I can't wait to hear all about it. So I'm going to disappear into the background, but I'm here if you need any help.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me. This is a real treat. I'm super excited to be a part of the Small Press Book Fair and want to give special thanks to the team at Sten Press and Laura for hosting the event and making this all possible. It's just such a great opportunity to talk about my book and just to offer a deeper look behind the production of what's going on here. So let me attempt to get my screen share here and make this big, and we will play. Brilliant. So yes, good opportunity to talk about my book and talk about its production, and also to take a tour around my studio. And you guys can take a look at some of the projects that so really inspired. So I'll show you, introduce you to the newest production. So it's been through a couple different iterations. I first self-published it in 2018 as an artist book. And then what a treat in 2021 to have a new edition published by Sten Press. It was reshot, it was beautifully designed, it's now in hardcover, and I'm just absolutely thrilled with it. So this is, the sew started, basically it's a sewing project. I like alliteration, and what I wanted to explore was, I wanted to see if I could tell a story with as few elements as possible. So the challenge I sort of set for myself was fabric and a paper punch. So you'll see here, this is a very early picture of my studio, earlier studio, with a bunch of paper mock-ups in the back. So I'm exploring sort of different fabrics, different textures, colors, shapes, And then what else do I have here? Oh, and then my camera's there in the back, but that big black thing on the left is a sort of a photo light box. And that inspired me really. When I got that box, I was like, ooh, I want to make something. So what you do is you can stick a tripod in the top, through a hole in the top, and it has these great LED lights. Here, I'll show you the next picture, where so it evenly lights whatever you lay down, and I can just take pictures from above. So basically, I created these little stage sets, and it kind of got more and more elaborate. I just sort of pulled more stuff in from the studio, and it was even I didn't know what was going to happen, which kind of made it interesting. But I think that is kind of the role of an artist. So let me take myself off of this, and then I can show you some materials that I used to shoot it with. Let's see what I got here. So I have, as an example, the fabric stage set, which is basically just sewn batik. I just really had a good time exploring all the different kinds of batiks, and then just basically a big paper punch using this is another one of my favorite tools, and this is still showing up in my practice. So this is a and everything was shot pretty much one-to-one. Here's my book, and I'll give you a sense of that page spread, which is this. So it really is, it's extraordinarily close. And I used various colors, patterns to indicate where the character was kind of emotionally as well. So I used the lighter motifs, lighter fabrics to indicate sort of the exterior. And then as the little protagonist kind of moved inside, like through the cave or through the little portals that I created, then it got a little darker. And the materials I used, here's the rickrack section, where the sort of skies were a little darker, the ground was usually browns, but you got a sense of sort of how I would lay these things down. What else? Ooh, and then there were all the materials. There was the rickrack, there was the basically scissors, and this is basically what I was doing, was pulling stuff off the desk, out of the box. I have these piles of buttons that that I utilized and had all sorts of fun with. But what I knew that I wanted it to be sort of this journey story, but I didn't quite know how it was going to end. I knew that it wanted to come out and I wanted it to be transformed in some way, but it really wasn't until it got towards the end, that pile of buttons, the little protagonist picks up a different material each page spread. And when I had my little pile of buttons, there was this one little button, this little white button that it's sort of like the little Jiminy Cricket. It's the button that started following the little protagonist along. And it really wasn't until the very end that I realized that it was blind in some way. And then that the transformation that happened that sort of turned it into sort of something that was more recognizable as a button, that was sort of the moment of transformation. And this, you know, how you sort of acquire, it really became sort of a Dharma teaching, and all the things you acquire along the way, and at the end you sort of have to let it go, figure out what you've learned you've learned from the process, and then that's the moment in which your eyes are opened in some way. So that's sort of the conceit behind the story. I think it's always kind of amazing when the story ends up teaching, the story ended up teaching me. And it's just a very remarkable and visceral part of sort of working on a project. You just never quite know where it's going to show up, and how it continues to feed your process. And that's also been kind of remarkable. What else? I can show you some other things in the studio. I'm gonna unplug and take you for a walk. So after the book came out, I ended up doing a lot of work sewing buttons onto photos. I kind of changed from fabric to photographs. And I trained as a photographer. I understand that medium very well. And so I started gluing things together and punching out photos. These are just 4x5s, and sewing buttons on. Again, trying to create a simple story. These are a little less narrative. They're almost like their own little seeds. And I kind of consider all of these little pieces to be seeds. Here's another example of, and I liked sewing them. I liked gluing them, but creating all these little connections, little windows. And again, using my very favorite tool, the paper punch, I started chopping up all of my old photographs. It's just something I like doing. And people started giving me photographs, so that's been great as well. So I not only am I crunching up my own photos, but also using other people's. There's like a period in the 90s and 2000s when they give you doubles. I could never throw those photographs away, and I have boxes and boxes full of them. And there's something kind of slightly transgressive, something it's a lot about memory to some extent. I just love the surfaces of the of photographs and how they. Here, I have a pile. Here's one of my many piles of photographs, and how they that shiny plasticky surface. They're actually really quite strong, and I really enjoy the surface. I enjoy the fact that they have some sort of memory attached to them. Here, I'll just show you sort of a work table here. And these punches, you can literally just, and sometimes I'll create like little sort of frames for them and then just punch them out. And I do this like a gabillion times. So I have a lot of these various sized photographs. And now, rather than the sewing with the buttons, I've been stapling. Here, another view of the staples. And this is just a selection of various stapled photo shapes. I have some that are just flat that I've glued onto paper or board. And then there are others in which I have stapled them together into shapes and forms. And those I'm experimenting putting on the walls, I'm hanging them from the ceiling. Sometimes I'm doing them front and back so that you kind of can see inside. There are others that I'm doing with just doing so that you can kind of look inside and see. Kind of enjoying those shapes. What else? I'm also using sort of the very, almost like, it kind of looks like coral or bone. I'm enjoying these. They're really light, but they're pretty strong too. And it's basically just photographs and staples. I don't know if you can kind of see the connections. And you really don't, like, you can't quite see what it is. You can kind of see colors and forms, and I really like the lightness, and I like the actually the strength of these. So I can see these growing. Again, I see these as seeds, don't quite know where they're going, but it's been fun just to put them up, take a look at them, see how they're talking to me. And here's one that's just completely inside out. So all the photos are on the inside. I've been stacking them, sort of seeing how they live together. Some I'm happier with than others. Some are just like complete kind of shapes, voids. And I started doing this during COVID. I just took home a bunch of, I had boxes of photos, I had my paper punches, and I had my stapler. And this is sort of what happened. I can show you over here too. What we got over here? This is the newest stuff. I'm not quite sure where this is going, but much more contained forms, a little more decorative. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. So I think this might, I don't know, again, not sure if these are done, but these are also, the difference being they're stapled, but they have their edges cut. So they very much create a very strong circle shape. And so I'm just working with those in multiple ways. And also working front to back. So they also have, and these are a little more recognizable in terms of having forms that you can sort of read as landscape or people, or, but again, not so much that it's distracting, or it's a little hard to make a narrative out of them, but it's enough to kind of pull you in. There's like just these little mouse tails of ideas, and I like that. It's not like super distracting, but it kind of allows your eye to hop from place to place. And here's this guy. I'm not quite sure what's going on with this guy, but these, I'm using all of the photographs. I'm using, it's sort of like, what do they call it? Snout to tail. So when I punch out all the little bits of the photographs. These are my remaining photo bits. So I've been just stapling them all together and creating these kind of hanging structure. And I don't, this, I think it's just a puppy. I think it's gonna grow much bigger. And I don't quite know. I think it is gonna hang because it kind of has a really nice structure to it. But it also kind of has a front back. You can kind of get a sense of both the aspects of what these photos were. It's kind of like coral again. So it has kind of a sharpness to it, but it also has a kind of an interesting body, and one in which I don't think I want to give it a I don't want to give it bones. I kind of want it to have its own form, and I want it to kind of hold its own shape. What else? I have some hanging pieces. Well, I'm also fiddling around with doing some framed pieces, which is kind of fun. Although it's different. It's different to enclose it. I'm kind of enjoying having like them like fly and be free. And I am especially enjoying hanging stuff from the ceiling, because to be able to experience them like in its full 3 dimensions, that also I think is kind of an exciting way to experience them. The light is also really interesting. Sometimes the light comes in through the studio. Photos are very light sensitive, and they don't, it's not great to have them under high light situations. They can fade. But in a way, because these photographs have been tucked away for so long, they're very vibrant. So I'm kind of curious how they're going to age, and in a way, I think I'm okay with that too. You know how slides will get very red, or the color photographs will kind of, the color will shift in weird ways. That's another element of this whole project that um, you know, I'm going to have to acknowledge this is part of what using these materials. This is what happens to these materials. But in a way, I think that's part of the way we kind of experience time, the way our bodies experience time, sort of what these pieces are about to some extent, which is the fragmentation, creating these kind of new connections. Um, how um, how do we sort of glue that together in our brains? How do we, you know, look to photos to really give us, you know, they're kind of our memory banks. Oh, there's something else I wanted to show you. Just in relation to the Set and Press project, I did a this is a mock-up, but I did a fabric study for sew, and sort of was just exploring different fabrics and with the batiks I was working on, and made a limited edition print that's part of the Set and Press art. They offer sort of limited edition fine art prints. So this is the one I did. It has a little kind of cutout here as well, and I'm kind of excited about it. So that's an edition, and that is available. What else? Just set you up. Oh, there's a rickrack drawing I did up there. That, no, I don't like rickrack very much, but I've been living with this, and she's been looking at me, and I've been looking at her, and she's okay. I have some more sort of seeds up over over my desk, and there are several, another sort of tangential project that I've been working on, and we'll see where it goes, but are these archival photographs where I'm sort of, these again are a little earlier, and these are more sewn archival images. I'd really like to get some older photos and start fiddling around with them. Just for some reason, they tend to talk to the buttons in a different way. And I don't know if the buttons are going to continue. We'll see. I've been finding a lot more interest, or a lot more energy working with the staples. There's a really interesting kind of kinetic motion that happens. You kind of just, this is one of my favorite staplers, and you can just, and it creates a really wonderful kinetic connection. And I like that, having that motion available. And that's part of what makes the shapes so kind of, they are kind of loose and kind of soft. And then they just sort of, they can move a little bit. And how that's going to manifest, I have no idea. Here's a piece that I'm working on right now. It may turn into a circle. It may turn into more of a three-dimensional form. I'm not quite sure, but you can see how I'm layering the images, so it's not just sort of a single disc. There are multiple discs layered on the top there. These I'm getting ready to cut into giant circles. Still, we'll see where that goes. Oh, and here's a whole, this is sort of the last of my, I don't know. I've been thinking about these as sort of maybe as tarot cards or something. They're small. I've just been making them and making them. They're very satisfying. It's kind of like a deck of cards. Um, and again, they're just these images stacked on images, landscapes, peoplescapes, just, and I think I'm doing these more with color, um, and not so much. It's a little more. They're a little more formal in terms of how I'm putting them together. Um, but that's sort of the lay of the land here in East Harlem. Sun's going down. It's actually turned out to be quite a nice day. But it's a really nice opportunity to show folks what's going on. It's such a treat to be able to piggyback on Sten Press and the Small Book Art Fair, Small Press Art Fair, and just it's a treat to be able to show my space. Laura, are there any questions?
I was going to ask you, are you ready to field some questions? I've also dropped
Sure.
some pertinent information in the chat. You're welcome to all go there and kind of follow whatever is of interest to you. There was a comment here from
Mhm.
Marsha Badashian.
Hey, Marsha.
She says here that it's amazing to me how much you've done with a simple circle. They're evocative, profound, and fun.
Ah, that's sweet.
Also, Meg here, Meg Harker is also asking, have you ever considered making some top motion animation?
Yeah, I have, and that light box is really good for that as well. Um, it's on the list. I don't have that skill set, so it's something I'd have to either look or find someone to help me with. But it does lend itself very nicely because it does have that kind of innate kinetic. Um, at least the stapled piece has that innate kinetic feel to it. But thanks, Meg.
I might ask a question of myself actually, and that's just, have you considered, I know that some of your earlier pieces, Heather, you were kind of playing around with wearing them, and I'm wondering like
Yeah.
that's part of some of those forms they're very almost like headdresses or other kinds of things, and I'm
Mhm.
wondering whether you've played around with that at all.
I have played around with it. Nothing ready for prime time. Let's put it that way. But they do kind of have a very biomorphic kind of like it would work within a body context.
Right,
Um,
right.
so at some point, I wouldn't rule it out.
They create some kind of a very interesting skin. They're scalar, they have that kind of quality to them. Yeah.
Yeah, totally,
Um,
totally.
Amy is asking, Amy wants to know, are you still using your light box to shoot your projects? Are you,
Not so much now. Not so much now. I use them more. I use it more for documentation because you get a nice even light. But I
uh,
haven't felt inspired to kind of use it more within a narrative way, or I would probably use it if I were going to animate. But how else have I used it? Yeah, but it's a fun tool. It's a super fun tool.
hmm. Virginia, Bro actually wants to know how do you choose how to connect the cutouts? Um, I mean,
Ooh.
basically the question is about, do you associate them through color or type or image, or how do you make those decisions?
Yeah, it's kind of intuitive. Sometimes I can overthink things, and one of the most awesome things about this particular project is that I've just been going really fast, and that's another nice thing about this kind of connector too. So with sewing, sometimes it's a little slower, a little more contemplative, but with the stapling, I can go really fast. And I find that I do tend to choose by color, but because there's so much material that I'll probably go size first, material, color second, and and then just sort of let it grow. It also depends on what photos I have punched out. Sometimes it's like I just get a big pile of landscapes, so it tends to be on the green scale or green blues, and so it's kind of interesting to see how that affects shape as well, or even what it looks like. I had like a big pile of children's birthday party, and the tone was totally different, which was great, but really kind of bright. And yeah, it's always kind of fun to see how things are gonna glue together, and it is very random.
So George is asking a question here. This is hilarious. What is your obsession with round things? Where does that come from? And have you always been this way?
George, yes. No triangles here. Not a square to be seen. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I could tell you. And it's just, in the last 40 years where things have been so round. I went through a whole box phase, but now it's all about the circle. Meh. That's all I got for you, George.
And here is Sharon Cox asking you a question. She's
Hi, Mom.
She's appreciating the large piece of leftover photos. Looks like a dancing figure.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there is. That's lovely. Yeah, there is something very it just sits in the corner and does pirouettes whenever the heater turns on.
Right. And Kate McQuiston. So
Hey, Miss Kate.
her question is, the circles do evoke geological, and biological
Mm.
formations. And she says, but they're also a little like button punk rockers pinned to the like buttons that punk rockers pin to their jackets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that they don't have messages per se, but yeah, they could be as organic and as light as a bubble, or as utilitarian and throwaway as a shirt button. Um, they can be decorative. And I'm always, I kind of want to walk the other side of decoration. So that's sort of what I'm sort of that's a tightrope I'm kind of walking. And so by sort of showing you this sort of 360 view of work that's maybe not quite done yet, it gives you a sense of how ideally I'd love to hit some punk rock notes in all of this, and sort of how to fine tune that. And that's really the work of an artist, is how to fine tune those messages. But that's an awesome observation, Kate.
I'm curious to know, Heather, if you have, if you have another sort of book form in your head. I know that's sort of a dangerous question in terms of like, where are you going from here? But I'm going to ask it anyway because, that's my job. But I am curious, like where it looks to me as if they're more sculptural at this point, and the book form is you're kind of stepping away from that. I don't know. Is that true?
Yeah, it's really, yeah, it's hard to know. And the projects will present themselves, and I follow them. And I think some of those seeds that I showed you, those could live maybe in a book or an artist book form, just because they have that consistency of size. They're all about 4x5. But in a way, I find my little staplers, it's like a binding in a way. So if they're not books per se, they don't have a spine, but I am kind of building these structures, and books for me have always been a kind of a loose that definition is very loose for me, and I'm totally happy with that. And I sort of see these structures almost as books unto themselves, because they do sort of tell a strange story, and they are connected in these ways. So maybe not a traditional book form, but yeah, it's always there.
Andy, actually, here's another question here from Andy Newman. He says, I like how you're attracted to photographs both for their physical characteristics as well as their symbolic meaning as an artifact. How do you pick the media that you work with?
Hmm. Sometimes very personal. Sometimes it's just my old scrap photos that I have in a shoebox. Other times it's very random, where people are like, here's a box of photographs. Do with them what you will. Other times pick things up at flea markets or eBay. So I'll take it where I can get it. I haven't sort of gone out looking for specific images. So I'd say maybe it's a little more random, but it's just such a rich medium, and there's so much out there.
I think, are there any more questions? Do you have any questions for us? No.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
TC. How did we get here? What are we doing? Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Okay, well, if you think of something, you log off and you think of something, I'm sure Heather would be delighted um, to answer any questions you had. You're more than welcome to email her at her website. Her website address is located in the chat as well. And I encourage you to, the book is really just beautiful. It's just a gorgeous thing, and I really encourage you there. It is both in hardcover and also as an ebook. And you're welcome to check that out and anything else at the Sten and Press website. And it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this, Heather. It's such a treat to have you here and to be able to answer questions in real time. It's really a pleasure, and it's been an honor for us to to publish your book. It's been really a wonderful journey. So thank you everyone for coming today. And I hope that if you aren't already on the Sten and Press email list, that you will go to the website and put yourself on that list so you can keep abreast of our activities. It's going to be a really exciting year. And yeah, and be well. Happy Friday, and take care. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Thanks for logging in. It was a treat to show my stuff.
Goodbye.